Welcome to episode 106 of Rubbish Talk with me, Alasdair.
And Henry Mathias, guest from Tranent Wombles.
Lovely to meet you, Henry. Great to have you on. So, first question is, got to ask you who the Tranent Wombles are.
Tranent Wombles, like a number of other groups that spontaneously seem to set up during lockdown, we set up Tranent Wombles in 2020. There wasn't much kind of else to do. We were all stuck in the house. We kind of cleared up our own houses, maybe. And it was a safe group activity. And it was really interesting just how many Wombles groups just set up in the UK during the lockdown period.
So was there actually, I never knew there's a UK-wide, so this is for basically going out litter picking. So I never knew there was a UK-wide network.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't an organised thing. We set up as a litter picking group to clear up Tranent and put on a Facebook organisation, put it up there, and found that there were lots of other Wombles groups all over the UK. So it was a very kind of spontaneous response, I think, to the circumstances. Maybe it does say something about the age demographic of the people. We all kind of have the Wombles in our memories and close to our hearts, looking after the environment kind of thing. And so it was, felt like a really natural thing to call ourselves Tranent Wombles.
So do you have members as such, or do you just have volunteer? How does it all work? How do you all structure it if there's such a thing?
Tranent Wombles, it's a very informal group of volunteers. We all live in Tranent. From the Facebook group, we've got a huge number of members. I think we've got over 1,000. But of course, within that, a handful of committed activists who are doing the actual litter picking kind of day in, day out. When we first set up, we had big group litter picks, and it was really satisfying just addressing some of the litter and the fly tipping legacy in Tranent and just getting rid of that. But as well as the group picks, we've got a lot of individual members who just look after their local patch. We will issue the equipment, litter picking equipment, and they will do their own spirit or their own wee bit of Tranent as well.
So how do you fund the litter picking equipment and stuff like that? How does that get funded?
Yeah, we do, fundraising. So we've got collecting tins in lots of the community facilities around here. All the pubs have got them. And we've had support from East Lothian Council, from Area Partnership. There are different organisations we can apply for funding. So that's not really been too much of a problem, getting the money for buying litter picking equipment. I would say, the challenge would be more just sustaining and maintaining a group of volunteers continuing to do the litter picking. And part of that, needs to kind of keep going as a litter picking group. We thought, as well as clearing the place up, let's start giving Tranent a bit of TLC and start looking after the environment more. So we started planting, doing community gardens, and increasing the biodiversity within Tranent. So as well as clearing it up, kind of making the place better for animals, people to live in, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And how are you finding that in terms of getting new volunteers? Is it still an older demographic, or are you getting young people involved? Are they engaging?
Yeah, and we've done quite a bit of work with youth groups, with schools, and certainly that's been really positive. It's just partnering up with other organisations and with younger people who are members of groups or in schools. So, one of the projects that we've just done was with St Martin's Primary School. and we planted a wee forest, which is part of a wildlife corridor that we're setting up in Tranent. So part of that is just making sure that this corridor goes through the centre of Tranent, is kept tidy, kept clean, that we, regularly litter pick, but then also plant up, keep the place, looking and feeling just loads better. And it's been amazing just seeing the difference in terms of the insect life, the birds that have been attracted. And it's really like changed that kind of urban environment that we have in Tranent. Mining community, not the wealthiest of communities within East Lothian. And it's just been really satisfying seeing practically you can make a real difference in your patch by litter picking, by clearing up stuff, and by enhancing the environment a bit.
I've got to then ask the sort of maybe the negative question. How do you cope with the continual grind of the litter picking? I know there's a group in South Ayrshire that regularly, I think once a week, they're doing a bit just along from my office, and every week I see them, and every week they've got bags and bags of rubbish, and I'm thinking it's just so depressing that every week they're cleaning up the same amount of stuff. That at some point we've got to say, like, that stuff shouldn't have been in the street in the first place. How do you get away with it? How do you keep that momentum going when there's that is there not a bit of frustration there?
Yeah, I mean it's in some ways when you've cleared a whole stretch of road, a part of town, and then you're going back a month later and it's filled again. Of course, it's like, oh, how on earth do we stop it being littered in the first place? I would say that, we're well supported. And, when you're out and about, you're always getting people stopping and just,
Yeah,
beeping the horn or stopping and having a word. And that support really, really helps. And so, the community as a whole is really behind us. And yeah, every time we get people just expressing their appreciation really makes a difference to us. But of course, it is a bit of a soul destroying thing that's happening.
yeah,
And
no,
when
totally.
you visit other countries in Europe and see that they don't have the litter problem, uh, you just think, how on earth can we actually, systemically address this issue?
Well, you've maybe heard the interview I did with Heather from KSB recently. It just frustrates the life out of me that we seem to accept it. We seem to have just got to a stage where accepting that our roadsides are covered in litter, and we don't seem to, in a policy side and so on, we don't seem to be doing anything to actually address the issue. And I go back to, there was again a COVID thing. There was a guy in Ayr, lived in Prestwig, called Chris, and he decided what he was going to do was pick a million bits of litter, and it wasn't him personally picking a bit of litter, but they would keep a tally in a log, and eventually he just got so frustrated with it because basically what he was doing was he was saying that I'm just basically allowing people to continue to litter, because I'm just like, and some of the chat I've had recently with councils is, maybe they're needing to not clean the streets for a couple of weeks, so people actually realise how bad it actually is.
I mean, you do wonder what it will take for um, Scotland, Britain to become reasonably um, like other countries, because I think we do stand out as having kind of let this go completely. I mean, since setting up in 2020, we've collected over 7,000 bin bags, big bin bags
Yeah,
of litter, and you just think, wow, if the Wombles wasn't there doing that, the council probably wouldn't have the resources to fill that gap, and we'd be living in even more mess.
yeah,
And I do kind of pick up your point, Alistair, there, in that, you know, we've got quite a system, for we should be able to be on top of the litter problem. We have funded organizations, we've got all the strategies and policies all lined up, we have the legislation all there. And it all kind of sounds and looks really good on paper. And then you step out the door and confronted by this tsunami of litter and fly tipping. And you just think, how can we work better together with the community groups doing all this voluntary work and, the funded authorities, funded organizations?
Yeah.
I was really struck, so one of the issues that I was looking at is, okay, part of the strategy for improving the litter is prosecutions. And so I was looking, okay, so how many people have been
There's been next to
done
none.
for littering? How many people have been done for fly tipping? And what I was surprised and shocked by is that the groups that I would have assumed had that information, were monitoring that information, like Keep Scotland Beautiful, like Zero Waste Scotland. So I contacted Zero Waste Scotland and Keep Scotland Beautiful, think, oh, can I have the stats, the data on the number of prosecutions, the number of fixed penalty notices for littering and fly tipping? And they were unable to provide that for me. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll ask Scottish Government. They must have it. No, they didn't have it either. I ended up having to do a freedom of information request to my local council here, East Lothian Council. I mean, it turns out we've done one fixed penalty notices for littering, one for fly tipping last year. So it's not a high rate, and I understand that a lot of local authorities have not got any at all. And I would say that it goes hand in hand, that you would really want to have good enforcement, and as well as the enforcement, to publicise it.
Yeah.
I've never seen anybody, I've never any case reported in the press about people littering,
Yeah.
because
No.
surely that would be a good starting point.
Yeah, no, I know. I used to work with some council officers down in, I think it was Stoke and Trent Council they were employed with, and they were very hot on the litter. And it's just so much so that I was sitting in the car with one of them, and the car in front, the window opened, cigarette butt went out the window. He picked up it was a few years ago. He picked up a dictaphone, registration such and such on such and such a road, the time, the thing, and that was a fixed penalty issued to that driver. Now,
That's what we need.
currently in Scotland, we can't do that because I believe the legislation doesn't allow you to find the owner of the vehicle, and there's some sort of complication. But that's all, to me, that's all within the will of Scottish Government, Zero Waste Scotland, to sort out. But instead,
Absolutely.
what we do is we issue a 10-year plan and a 10-year plan, and we don't actually start. A lot of the analogy I always use is you cut down on speeding by giving people penalty points and fines. You cut down on littering by people giving people fines. Until you actually start doing that systematically, you're not going to change this. And groups like yourself, great job you're doing, but the reality is you're never going to win the battle.
Yeah, it feels like we're kind of fishing the bodies out downstream,
Yeah.
and we need to really do something about addressing them at source. It made a huge difference, and we were really, really pleased when Scottish Government introduced that law about packaging, about the carry-outs, the takeaways. And as soon as it changed from plastic to cardboard paper, it was so much better. And so, we would really, and I mean, the biggest thing that would make a difference, of course, is a bottle return scheme, because so much of the litter that we pick up are plastic bottles. And so that was a real disappointment, that the bottle deposit return scheme didn't happen. And
Yeah.
so we're really looking forward to that taking place, because there are really concrete things that can be done by government to help. I mean, even just the thing with the plastic bottle tops.
Yeah, been
and
tied together.
them starting to become joined together. That was a small but significant move, and
But
it's
but
things
that's
like
a
that we would.
that that's actually a European requirement. So it's not actually mandatory in the UK. So that was driven by the Europeans saying you had to attach them, and because people
Uh,
produce material, they don't produce it just for the UK. We've ended up getting that by default. So
I didn't realize. That's really interesting.
that's an
Oh
impression.
well, oh well.
So in
Spin-off
terms of
benefit from EU.
just in terms of I'm conscious we've totally gone off script of the question set I provided you, but that's fine. That's all good. In terms of the sort of practical realities of litter picking, what's the worst thing you've found? What's the worst thing you've had to deal with, or one of your volunteers has had to deal with?
Oh, I mean, one of my pet hates is there's so much dog poo,
Yeah,
and it goes with the territory. You get quite used to the dog poo. I learned early on not to put dog poo into a bin bag and then put the bin bag over my shoulder, because the devil's juice was all down my back, and it took a while. Well, actually, anyway, yeah, things
I've
like that.
I again I've got a dog poo. There's technology out there. You make it mandatory that every dog needs a chip. You take their copy of their DNA, and then if you find dog poo, you test it for the DNA, and you get a fixed penalty through the post. That's how you sort out dog poo. And we've got most animals are chipped. We know who the owner is. That would just drastically reduce the amount of dog poo that's out there. The technology's out there, but we're not using it.
That would be so good, because yeah, dog poo is the bane of our lives, really. Um, Picking up this stuff, and it's everywhere. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. In terms of when you say you do the community ones, do you how well supported are they in terms of is there a fun element to it as well, if you know what I mean? Do you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a challenge, of course, maintaining numbers, doing this kind of job. But there's nothing more satisfying than having a part of your town that you're walking past, driving past, regular basis, and it kind of causes you upset, and you really want to do something about it. But it's hard as an individual to do that. But then when you get a group blitzing it, it is just so satisfying to address it. And some of it is kind of historical litter as well,
Yeah,
particularly on the sides of the roads. So that's just been great to get to the bottom of some of those clutter litter hotspots that we've got.
yeah. The Rotary Club of Ayr does a beach clean all up the coast of Ayrshire, and they have been doing it for, I don't know, 20, 25 years. And initially, you could literally turn up and you could literally stand, a 10 square metre area, and you could just fill bags upon bags upon bags. And then gradually over time, it actually got to the stage where you'd maybe have some scouts groups or some cubs or whatever out with you. And it was a real challenge for them to actually find, bits of litter. And I think it wasn't it that it was getting better every year, if you like, from that historical stuff. But it was also that there were people also just regularly, sort of, if they were walking the trail, they would pick as they went. So you
Yep,
were just
yep.
gradually getting that, and I quite often see people out running where they've got a bag with them and they're just out for a walk and they're just tidying up as they go.
I've
So
seen that more and more, and yeah, we do the group picks, but people like just being able to do it individually and doing it as part of their daily routine. And you see that more and more. And I think that, if people kind of took responsibility for just looking after their immediate neighborhood, then that would make as much more of a difference. Mm.
So what's next? Do you think for the organisation? I think I get a sense it's keep going, keep doing what you're
Yeah,
doing. Any big plans? Any sort of master plans? Any sort of
yeah, we'll carry on with the litter picking, and combine it with this environmental work as well. So continue to enhance this corridor that is kept looking good and is a pleasant place to kind of hang around. Because some of it is just about looking after your patch and making it more conducive just to spend time in. So whenever we improve an area, we'll probably put a bench in, we'll put maybe a picnic table, somewhere for people to spend time in. And it's about kind of valuing your immediate neighborhood. And during lockdown, people were forced to spend much more time locally.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was probably, a good thing in some ways, in that you start saying, oh, we could, some really nice walks, actually, really locally.
yeah,
That could be improved a bit. Oh, let's clear up. And I think it's just about giving your patch a bit of TLC generally. That's what we're into. So we'll carry on doing that. We're also, looking at, some of the systemic problems we've touched on. And one of the things that we're really conscious of is each time Tranent is just off the A1 outside, 12 miles out of Edinburgh. Lots of drive-throughs. And
mm,
whenever a drive-through opens, we know about it.
yeah,
We can just see the brands as soon as it opens, and it doesn't need to be that near. It can be
yeah,
quite a drive away from Tranent, but it kind of gets chucked
yeah,
out a certain distance after you've eaten the stuff, I guess. And so we're thinking, oh, when the council is licensing another drive-through restaurant, we started now to raise questions about that and saying, look, when are we going
mm,
to say no to these?
yeah.
Because it's a known fact that the litter will increase on these drive-throughs, and they're very, very popular. And they're very popular from the companies, so that more profit is being made by McDonald's in the drive-throughs than the sit-in restaurants. There's a big, big expansion of drive-throughs, and we're thinking, really, do we need more and more of these things? Because they're tired of litter. We don't see
But
being able to control it.
again, we need to get smarter with this. We need to say that all these drive-throughs will have a camera. They know the vehicle registration, so you print on the packaging the vehicle registration. And again, that would stop. You have the vehicle registration about packaging. You pick it up, and that's a fixed penalty fine. That just cuts it. We're not being smart with how we're tackling this. We're you could in theory find a receipt for McDonald's and go back to that McDonald's, and they would be able to tie up that vehicle to that receipt. And if you can
Yeah,
issue
we've got the
a fixed,
technology.
yeah. So it's just like we're we're playing with this, and I think the frustration I've got with this, and I think that you probably share the frustration, is groups like yourself are doing a wonderful job, but it's the Fourth Road Bridge. Just you paint it once, and then
Yeah,
you go
yeah,
back to
yeah.
the start again, and you continue. And there doesn't appear to be anybody helping you the other side, actually trying to reduce the amount of stuff that's been put
No,
on
I
the
mean,
the
certainly,
thing.
if there could be a way of, and I don't think it would take much. I think it would only take a few public,
Yeah,
prosecutions essentially of littering from a drive-through. Um, and surely there must be a way of
of
improving
doing it.
this. And
Uh,
I was looking at what the Welsh government tried with McDonald's
mm,
to get some recognition, camera recognition and receipts, as you say,
yeah,
linked with the registration numbers. That was not possible. Um, and so there have been efforts. I know there was a big petition around it as well. But as you say, we've got the knowledge, we've got
yeah,
the technology, there's CCTV in
yeah,
Britain all over the place. Why can't we use it to
yeah,
really address a systemic problem that affects everybody? I mean, the impact of of living in amongst litter, I think it's got a psychological thing going on. And certainly whenever, I'm showing visitors around from abroad, I feel a bit embarrassed about the
mm,
state of the country, um,
yeah.
that we have, and surely we've got to be able to do something about it.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Any plans? Obviously, you mentioned the other Womble groups. Any any informal networks between them? Any plans for them to try and get a louder voice between you all?
Yeah, I mean, it was good for the recent application for a McDonald's drive-through in East Lothian, just up the road there. Um, Other Wombles groups, Pancaitlin Wombles joined us in the objection for that, and McMurray litter picking group. So, different. We're starting to network a bit more and join together um, in some of these issues because it is important. Because as you say, there are just thousands and thousands of volunteers just getting on with clearing up this
Doing it?
stuff.
Yeah. Do you think there is there enough support? Do you get enough support from the likes of the council, Zero Waste Scotland, KSB? What would help you, if you like? What would be the? Like, I know my deal with South Ayrshire, they're quite supportive of any litter picking group, and they'll do what they can within their framework to help them.
Well, I'll would certainly challenge KSB and Zero Waste Scotland to take control of the data, to know how many prosecutions there are, and if there's not enough, to do something about improving that,
Yeah,
so that litter picking groups can feel supported, so they see the publicity that the authorities, are using what powers they have
yeah,
and what resources they have, and doing their bit, supporting us doing our bit. I think that would
yeah,
be, a really practical thing. And then all the, local and national government policies, that we've touched on. Certainly, the ban on as much, single-use plastic bans would be great. Bottle return schemes, absolutely brilliant. And for all the authorities to really get together and crack the ongoing problems of not being able to use our technology to address this and to really get to the bottom of it.
yeah, yeah. I'm a firm viewer of litter fly tipping fines. They should be publicly available. There should be a portal. There should be a Scottish Government portal. Each council every month they should be updating how many fines they've issued, and that alone would drive things forward. But from talking to councils, they really struggle. They get very little support from the fiscal service in terms of enforcing the fines, the payments, and so on. But I think there's a bit of passing the buck between SEPA, the councils, the fiscal, and it goes round and round in a circle. And I don't think it's the hardest job to tackle, but I don't think there doesn't seem to be a particular will to do it. We seem to
It's
just be
difficult.
accepting. Yeah,
And, with the councils being, budgets being under such strain, they're cutting back.
yeah,
And you just think there probably needs to be more investment in that basic, litter picking. Because, at the moment, when the council comes and mows all the grassland in towns, they've not got the resource for the for the for the person doing the cutting to first clear up the litter. And so what they're doing is they're just mowing over all this littered grass. And so you get all the microplastics, all the cans all churned up into I heard it called a council coleslaw, and I thought, oh, right on. Dear me.
but there is a the councils and the contractors, your Bear and your Amy, have got a legal duty under the Environmental Protection Act to clear litter. So technically, they should not be going up and mowing a thing without clearing the litter. So there's definitely a thing where they're not complying with their own legislation, which is really sad. And maybe if they did have, maybe if they were forced to actually pick the litter before they cut the grass, they would actually start maybe helping a few campaigns to actually, they would start trying to find people and drive the change. But
Yeah, I mean, if we can't
uh,
get something as basic as that right, then start local, get it right. I know. Yeah.
I'm impressed that you've kept your enthusiasm with all these challenges. You've kept your enthusiasm to just do your bit. But I know I've talked about this in a few times in the podcast. When I used to run the landfill sites, wind blown litter was a real issue, particularly in Scotland when you're disposing waste. So regularly, you had fences needed cleared of litter and so on. And I used to actually find it a really therapeutic sort of thing. That you just
I mean,
you went out with a couple of bags and I'll just do this bit, and you there was a noticeable difference of what you did, and you were outside, you were in the fresh air, so I can fully understand how it's a sort of fairly
that's
therapeutic
what we like.
thing.
You might not be able to change all the policies up there, but you can at least do something
do something about it.
Practical. Yeah.
So. No, that's brilliant. No, it's been great to chat to you about what you're up to, and I only wish you every success. I think having that enthusiasm to consistently go out there and keep things going is great, and we probably need more Wombles all over the country to try and change this, as well as some of the things we've talked about. So thank you ever so much.
Well, thank you. No, that's great. Great to chat.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you again next Thursday at 4 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share with friends, and send us your feedback at hello@rubbishtalk.co.uk.